So speaking of morality, I'm going to go back to the topic. When I was driving out here to Georgia, I stopped in Arizona to visit my mom, hung out with her and her friends. Her friends are very liberal, and we had a conversation. Well, they had a conversation. I didn't chime in because I didn't even want to participate. But for some reason, COVID came up, and masking and vaccine mandates and all that bull. And something kind of struck me that one of her friends said, one of my mother's friends said, she said, I don't understand why, we can't just wear a mask and just get the vaccine. It's just good for everybody. It's just good for everybody. And at the time, this question immediately popped in my head, but I dare not ask it. But the question that popped in my head is, why is your health my responsibility? All right. Now, let me extrapolate a little bit. Like, your salary is not my responsibility. Whether or not you have children is not my responsibility. Whether or not you have a car is not my responsibility. Whether or not you're religious, believe in God, that's not my responsibility. Whether or not you read books, whether or not none of this is my responsibility. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to health, a virus that is, by the way, no more lethal than the flu. But when it comes to this topic, all of a sudden, it's my responsibility to protect your health. Why is that? I kind of wish I had asked the question, like, why? Explain to me why it is that your health and well-being is my responsibility. That doesn't sound, again, going back to the morality of money topic, that doesn't sound very moral. That doesn't sound like a freedom and liberty to me. Like, I'm responsible for you. Now, look, if you were my mother, if you were my child, if you were my wife, that's a little different, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about basically a random person that I've only seen once every 20 years of my life. Why am I responsible for you and your health in that scenario? I have no attachment to you. I have no direct correlation to you. I have no relation to you other than a very distant second, friend of friend. Why am I responsible? Where does this moral argument come from? And as I was thinking about this, I kind of realized, this is the way the left's mind works in the absence of God. They think that whatever it is that they feel, that becomes the God. Whatever science says, hard quotations there, that becomes the God. So all of the conclusions that are more like morally founded, morally based conclusions are driven from that. As opposed to, no, life happens. Viruses are not a new thing. They've been around for, as long as humans have been around. It's a part of life. And in so being a part of life, it is your responsibility to protect yourself from it. It is your responsibility to assess the situation, evaluate the options that you have, and take the appropriate action. Okay? Nobody is pointing a gun at you. Nobody is throwing a knife at you. Nobody is burning down your house. Nobody is driving 100 miles an hour in your neighborhood. What they are doing is living their life. They are breathing air, which is kind of important in terms of living. And you're now saying that they have to breathe the air differently. And you're saying that they must inject an experimental chemical into their body for yours sake, for the sake of your health. No, it is your responsibility. If you believe the vaccine is going to help you, get the vaccine. If you believe masking is going to help you, wear the mask. But you have absolutely no right to tell somebody else what they have to do to protect your health. You. You have no right whatsoever. All right? And you also, by the way, have no right to tell somebody that they can't have a gun to protect themselves. All right? If you're going to tell somebody that they don't have the right to possess a firearm to protect themselves, then I'm going to say you don't have the right to take the vaccine to protect yourself. How about that? Sound fair? Let's go ahead with that argument. And here's the other thing too. As I was saying, it's up to each individual to assess their particular situation and evaluate their options. There is a continuum of situations and particular variables involved in everybody's life. You cannot account for that in one single sweeping policy. This is one of my biggest takeaways from my economics training. And whenever you do that, you're going to do more damage than good, because what you're going to do is restrict options. And when you restrict options, it is always bad. Always, always, always. Just look at socialism. Just look at communism. When you reduce options and you reduce freedom and you reduce liberty and you reduce movement, you cause more damage than good. The problem, especially with the liberal mind, is that they're not wise enough, because they are so full of knowledge but not wisdom. They're not wise enough to anticipate what it is, the damage that it may be being done, that they can't see or that will only be able to be measured years down the road. This is something the conservatives seem to understand, at least overwhelming majority of them as far as I can tell. They seem to understand the unintended consequences will always be greater than whatever it is that you're aiming to achieve. And this is, I've seen this all the time when I was a liberal, is like, we would always look at the short-term data, when they raised the minimum wage in Seattle, for example. Yet, but a few months after the fact, we were pointing at studies going, look, see, we won. And then completely ignored the evidence that came in years after the fact, where prices went up, employment went down, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is something that I've just noticed is a stark difference between the mindset of a liberal and those who are not. So again, your health is not my responsibility. If you're fat, diabetic, obese, heart condition, don't exercise, have a poor, terrible diet with nothing but processed garbage food, that's on you. That's not my responsibility that now you're susceptible to a virus. That's not my responsibility. And I will not change my behavior to protect you and your poor choices. You made your bed. You deal with it. Fuck you. It is absolutely immoral to ask me to put a diaper on my face and inject my body, my choice, right? Inject my body with an experimental chemical so that you can sleep better at night. Fuck you. Fuck off. Get out. Go to another country, because this is not the country for you.